Smooth. Another shot.
One enemy remaining.
Q Time is a classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End. Q Time Soul Food is a family business started by Fred and Christine Crenshaw. Come on in, relax, and sink your chops into our tantalizing, mouth-watering, distinctive soul food with a twist, the Q Time way. 1120 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, or call your order in at 404-758-2881. Do you miss your mama's cooking? Then come on down to Q Time, an Urban Passport member.
YT Productions.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We are in the house for a special happy holidays, as some people would say, Thanksgiving week report. This is episode 93. So I say welcome on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show is that covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports for the institutions, large and small, from NAIA to NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, as we call him these days, Professor Washington and Professor Bishop, as they killing the game on the next level. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas. Yes, and I see that we have the folks are in the lab. They are packing up in the lab, and I'm loving it. Jumping on here, as we say. Kay Johnson, time for the lecture. Let's go. Good evening, everyone. Here to get my Tuesday HBCU Sports Lecture, Richmond, Virginia, CIAA all the way. Yes, indeed. Kay Johnson says, good evening and happy Thanksgiving, HBCU Sports Lab. Yes, that is right. Happy Thanksgiving to all involved. They're even chatting with each other. We have Lonnie Shaw getting it in for the Aggies. Willie Alex Hines says, hello, as they're chatting back and forth. Chuck Hunt is in the house. You know he's going to be in the building. Monroe.
Brother Hunt.
Our faithful is in here.
Brother Hunt.
Got brother Byron Gauthier, former president of the Alpha Eta Lambda Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity chapter here. And also, for you all that don't know, he's one of those rattlers out there, strike again. So I'm sure he's trying to get some inside information on the Jackson State program over there so he can go take it back to his folks in the swamp area over there to talk about. But let me be careful using that, because that could be a little rude, because that's the other place over there. We talking about the Tallahassee. where we talking about those heels as
the highest of the 7 heels.
Appropriate. Yeah, highest of the 7 heels.
Oh God!
As Mike would say, he don't know if that's appropriate with all these. You got Alabama A&M, as they say they the heel. You got Prairie A&M as the heel. So we'll have argue out on that information. But as we continue to go, we got Lawrence D. White. Let's get busy, fellas. PVU kicking off basketball tomorrow in Louisville, Kentucky versus Little Rock. Yes, Dallas is in the house, as he said. Kenyatta Reed, Tony Rowlett, Ralph Cooper, as we talked about. A.D. Drew, and we're going to do a little tease for y'all a little later. He's come out with the top 5 polls, Brian and A.D., as they do it for the Sports Rap show. And that's going to be fascinating. So we're going to do some preludes, if you would, for the women. He's broken it down uniquely that I haven't seen in the marketplace thus far. He's done men's and women's at the Division I level, all HBCU's top 5 programs. They've done it also in regards to NCAA Division II, and they've done it for the NAIA. Now, I've seen people do the combination where you've done, for example, us, at the mid-major level, as we call it. In baseball, I've seen them doing it for the small division, and you talk about the Black College Nines. Then you have those individuals that just do Division II. So the fact that innovation is what we do over here at BCSN in a lot of ways. So I'm excited about that y'all going to get a sneak peek if y'all haven't seen it before. So that's something to consider there. Let me jump back down here. As Brother Gauthier says, 06 brothers, yes. Frank
That's
Nelson,
right.
Texas Southern University. What's up, Doc? Troy Lamont Coleman, talking about North Carolina University. Aggies in the house, no doubt about it. Crystal Lamont, Texas Southern University, big time alumni, former national alumni president. So he's putting in the years as he's pushed forward in many ways. Kimberly Reynolds, the current national alumni president of Prairie A&M University.
Ms. Reynolds.
Hey, we got some dignitaries coming in here tonight. Dwight Moore, Kevin Crawford, FAMU in Dallas checking in. Good evening, brothers. Throwing up the 5 Kevin is doing. That's Brother Crawford there. George Atterbury repping Howard University from Washington, D.C. K. Johnson, hashtag 1908. Sisters out there of Alpha Kappa Alpha.
All right, K. Got to see it. K is representing.
AKA winning big, but all HBCUs are winning big. So let's get into it without further ado as we get into the rest of the show. We got a lot of news, and we're going to find a way to give you your updates as you know you want them. Let's go with Charles. Professor Bishop, what do you have us this week as you've closed your final exams week and relaxing in a lot of ways as you mentally take a break there? You know, I'm a slide to come to read as we teased out some other signs that I had you doing. Comparison. We might sneak a peek at that a little bit today at the end of the show, let people know what we do in terms of just finding new ways to get you information. But without further ado, give us some HBCU sports news of the week.
Sure thing. Well, we start off tonight's program on a somber note as Paul Covington, the winningest head coach of men's basketball at Jackson State. He passed away over the weekend. He was 86 years old. But I tell you what, when you take a look at Coach Covington, he coached Jackson State for 19 years, career record of 338 and 195, 4 outright SWAC titles from 1970, 1974, 75, 1982. He also shared championship titles with Alcorn in 1968 and Grambling in 1964. Covington was the SWAC Coach of the Year 5 times during his tenure, and in 1975, Jackson State was ranked number 1 in the NCAA Division II poll. So somber note in terms of an icon, another icon within the Jackson State stratosphere who has passed away.
Talk about some of the legendary coaches he coached against at the SWAC, just to let you know, when you talk about those numbers, how powerful they become when you stack them up against the competition, in regards to who he's coaching against. Legendary coaches and legendary himself in regards to that platform. Could you share with the people a little more so they can get a little more information in regards to what does it mean in terms of what Covington was able to do for Jackson State University?
I mean, it's huge. You take a look at Coach Covington. He was contemporary of Fred Hobby, of Bob Moreland, of Coach David Whitney at Alcorn State. But you take a look at some of the teams that he had, and it's just tidbits that I dug up. I mean, 4 players on his 1970 SWAC championship team, they were drafted. Of course, he was the head coach for brothers Eugene and Purvis Short. Eugene was a first-round draft pick in 1975. Purvis, first-round draft pick in 1978. He's also an accomplished tennis player. He lettered at Jackson State in tennis. And catch this, Dr. Bill, we talk about a Renaissance man here. First African-American to serve in the Presidential Honor Guard at Arlington National Cemetery. So you talk about an individual who had a man of many pursuits in terms of tennis, a basketball coach, but he's also a military guy. Graduated with honors from Jackson State, got his master's at University of Kentucky, and he graduated 67% of his players. So, a huge icon in terms of Jackson State basketball.
Yes, rest in peace. Great information there, and I appreciate you sharing it. Don't have enough time to make sure that we can give the accolades that have laid the groundwork for the history. Now we're talking 100 years strong. So that's a lot of history over a lot of period of time. So due diligence. Where was he in terms of Lindsey Hunter when Lindsey Hunter came through there? How long did he?
He's prior to Lindsey Hunter. His 19 seasons span from 1964 through about the late or the early 1980s, and then he comes back for another stint. He retired as head coach in 1986, but he was assistant athletic director until 1995. He also becomes the athletic director, and he served in that post until 1999. So he's inducted into the Jackson State Hall of Fame in 1988, the SWAC Hall of Fame in 2003, and the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame in 2008. So his record spans many platforms in terms of being inducted in various Hall of Fames, if you will. So.
No doubt about it. Great information. Mike, what news updates do you have for us tonight?
Yeah, a lot of big stuff happening in terms of golf contributions to HBCUs. Let me start, if you will. I'm going to try to combine these two because I know we have a lot of news. But first, Prairie View A&M has announced that a $40,000 donation from the Cameron Champ Foundation and Chevron Corporation is in place to establish 2 scholarship funds for student athletes on its men's and women's golf teams. Who won the last SWAC championship for golf?
Prairie View A&M University.
Let me wait for it. So anyway, the donation follows the historic conclusion of the pandemic delayed 2020. Yes, sir, indeed. The Master Tournament, where Augusta National honored Lee Elder, the first African American to compete in the tournament. So when Lee Elder walked on the Augusta grounds, it motivated Champ, as according to his statement. And so he was inspired by Elder and Augusta National's actions. A scholarship fund established by the Cameron Champ Foundation and Chevron will be named in memory of Cameron Champ's grandfather, Mac Pops Champ. So Mac Champ, an African American, taught Cameron Champ how to play golf, and like Lee Elder, inspired his grandson and other minority golfers to pursue golf. And wait, there's more. Hall of Famer golfer Phil Mickelson makes a $500,000 donation to Jackson State. We'll say Jackson State recently received a $500,000 donation from World of Golf Hall of Famer Phil Mickelson. The university could receive more during the match Champions for Change, which is on Friday at 2 p.m. on TNT. Champions for Change will feature Phil Mickelson and Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Famer Charles Barkley facing 3-time NBA champion Steph Curry, a near-scratch golfer himself who has contributed quite a bit to Howard's golf program as well, and 2-time Super Bowl champion Peyton Manning, and a modified alternate short match play at Stone Canyon Golf Club in Oro Valley, Arizona. So the golf event will include a series of on-course challenges to drive additional funding for HBCUs. Let me just stop right there. To drive additional funding for HBCUs. This is big. And for each of those holes, there will be a minimum of $100,000 up to $2.5 million on select holes donated if a golfer sinks a hole-in-one. Additional information on these challenges will be shared leading up to the event. So tremendous in the world of golf all around, contributing to HBCUs. CB, I know you play a lot more golf than I do. I'm just now dusting pulling the dust off my clubs. But I mean, this is huge. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, very much so. And following up on that, Peyton Manning, he's also going to be raising funds for 3 HBCUs, including Grambling, Southern University of New Orleans, and Lane College. So definitely, to the point you were making in terms of raising money for HBCUs, this is huge in terms of getting that exposure. That match will be on Friday on TNT.
Yeah, that's right. So
yeah, it's great information, gentlemen, as we always do, breaking it down, giving the information, and providing your thoughts on it. More importantly, one that stuck out to me, you all know where I stand with the NFL right now, but this gave me some pride, and I had to pause, and I actually turned on the NFL just so I could say that I actually witnessed it. As I saw the announcement, Commissioner Greg Moore sent me a text as he was excited about this information. And then you can go to HBCUGameday as well in terms of getting that update with Monday Night Football made some history, positive history last night when you had the field crew, all African-American blacks participating in it. And the 3 main officials were actually officials of SIAC that made history. And one of them obviously is a Morehouse graduate to add the HBCU history in terms of what was going on. So as we always say, when you talk about history of this country, a history of African Americans, Black, whichever term you prefer, it's inescapable how you tie it to HBCU at some point, just to let you know the magnitude of what's going on with HBCUs. So I wanted to get that on the table as we start to get ready for our guests to come in. What are your thoughts on that as we are waiting on that in terms of that?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's huge. It's a huge accomplishment, and for as often as we often pick on officials and things of that nature, they work very hard at their craft. I'm privy to kind of sit around and watch a lot of film with them because they're constantly studying and improving on how to get better, and for these guys to elevate through the SIAC to the highest of the profession in the NFL. Kudos to them, and kudos to Jerome Bogart, Morehouse man, who's the white hat for that game.
Certainly, Mike, as we zooming up to get Coach Reed in, go ahead and give me your thoughts real quick in terms of what the history that took place in the NFL last night.
Yeah, and there was a lot of banter, a lot of conversation on is the NFL being are they being political? Are they trying to make a statement? I don't care what you say. This is huge for them to recognize an all African American crew. With some of the members being products of HBCUs, especially Jerome Boger, as CB said. But I guess the thing that steps out is this shows the quality. This is a step to the quality of the African American product from HBCUs and how it fits in the realm of a big business. Here you're recognizing a group of individuals. They really control the game. They get a lot of the attention. They get a lot of criticism. And if you watch that game, the way they managed that game, there were folks who there were a lot of accolades on how they managed the game as well. So I don't know what you chalk that up to. I don't know if you chalk that up to experience or what, but the professionalism and with which they carried and how they managed the game is nothing new to us, but it speaks more so to the grander scheme, the larger footprint of America that, hey, look at the qualified individuals that you get from an HBCU and look at, say what you will, the NFL did step up and said, we're going to recognize an all African-American crew for a widely publicized game.
Yes, and I see Coach Reed shaking her head as we bring you in. So she knows about making history. She's already done that at Jackson State University, coming into a league that was stacked. So making a major statement. We will talk about the lead, a basketball team during COVID-19 pandemic. we'll do a little bit of history in terms of background. Those that don't know Coach Reed, I don't know if you follow SWAC basketball, how you haven't known that in terms of all the accolades she's already bringing to the table, including a regular season championship. How about that?
Yes,
in terms of leading Jackson State University women's basketball coach, Tomekia Reed.
Why is Charles grinning over there? Why is he grinning over there from cheek to cheek? Why is he doing that?
I will say with this, Coach Reed, one of the reasons you're on the show is because obviously you deserve it in terms of what you've done with that program. But as we call him, Professor Bishop, Brother Bishop in a lot of ways to us, he made sure. He was like, now, look now, it's time to get on the show. Let's get into basketball season. I said, Charles, let us get into the first week. He said, I know, I'm just making sure y'all understand. We need to make this happen. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
No problem at all. Before we get started, how are you doing? I know we're getting into Thanksgiving. How's the team doing at this point?
Everybody's doing good. Working extremely hard, pressing forward, even though it's a tough time and a very uncertain time. Nevertheless, the players are still working hard. We're getting geared. We're trying to stay safe and COVID-free. So right now we have no complaints. We're just extremely blessed right now.
Certainly. Before I pass it on to Charles in regards to his first question, let me ask those that have not dug into your background, talk about where you're from, if you would, and then a little bit in terms of how you got into coaching women's basketball.
Well, I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. I've obviously ventured away to coach basketball, but it brought me back here into the state. But I've been coaching basketball for 16 years. I've been all over the place. I started at South Georgia Technical College, a 2-year school in Georgia. I left there and became an assistant coach at Jackson State. And I was an assistant coach at Jackson State for 3 years, from 06 to 09. Well, yeah, 09, 8, 9. And during my time at Jackson State as an assistant coach, we won several championships. And so, we had a really good season and time under Denise Taylor. And I left there at Jackson State and went to University of Louisiana Lafayette. And coached with Earl Rogers, and I left there and went to the University of Southern Mississippi, to Jacksonville University to be associate head coach. And from Jacksonville University, I went to Louisiana Tech to work with Teresa Weatherspoon. And after I left Louisiana Tech, I went to the University of New Orleans. And from there, I went to Hines Community College, where I became a head coach for the community college for 3 years. Took a program that had only won about 4 games in 10 years. We won 10 our first season. In our second season, we got to a championship game. The school had never been in school history. And so that was our first time getting to the championship game in our second year. Coached 3 years there, and then I came over to Jackson State, and I'm into my 3rd year now at Jackson State.
And you getting it done. So Coach Reed, I'm excited. I'm just like, wow, talented. I read your bio, so I knew that. But I wanted to make sure that we share it with the people out there, so appropriately giving you your kudos as you deserve. With that, let me jump over to Charles, as he was so inclined. Let me make sure that he gets a piece of this here.
No doubt. Oh, welcome in, Coach Reed.
Hey, thank you so much, Dr. Charles.
There you go.
Yes, indeed. Well, obviously, these have been unprecedented times in terms of preparing your team for this upcoming season, and even preparing your team to defend their regular season championship. But I wanted to kind of ask in terms of some of the processes or the protocols that your team has been taking in terms of preparing and getting ready for the season. What have been the challenges?
Well, early on, we had players who were testing positive for COVID. And obviously, when you test positive, everything shuts down. We all have to go into quarantine. But the players now understand the importance of staying in our bubble that we created. We put all of our players in apartments on campus and try to keep them away from so many people. And so they understand staying within that bubble. So that part of it, we've been doing really well with. We've been going here for now about 2.5 months with no positive tests. And right now we're testing once a week, and starting this week, we've been testing 3 times a week to prepare to play Mississippi State on Sunday. But in terms of that, those are some things that we're doing to make sure the players are safe from, COVID-19. But in terms of on the basketball side, we're pushing. We're obviously 2 months behind, but I told the players, we're not going to look at being behind. We're looking at where we're going, and we're going to make the best out of it. I had to cut right through the meat this time. And normally, you train, but now we have to get right to it. We had a lot of freshmen that feel like they're behind. A lot of freshmen, they're not used to the high demands and the high expectations of a program. And I told the team, I'm not lowering my standards because of the pandemic. We're having a season, and if we have a season, we are expected to perform. So the players get after it every day. And, outside of COVID, we practice like we've been practicing for a while.
Mm-hmm.
For the last couple of years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. Mike, follow up with a question if you would.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Coach Reed. There just seems to be this Jackson State grin and smile. It's just been a Jackson State year. I don't know what it is. but Coach Reed, it is a pleasure and an honor to meet you and to be on the interview panel for you. So thank you very much. My question is a little bit different. I know you've had quite a bit of experience, but this, as my colleague CB has said, has been an unprecedented year. So what unexpected roadblocks or things maybe you weren't looking for coming into this year, or maybe even going into 2021, have you encountered? And have you had, and you've had to kind of maneuver somewhat, and how have you been able to negotiate some of those challenges?
Well, that's a good question. The roadblocks initially were the positive testing with COVID. And so we had to make the adjustments, and we just had to figure it out. Players were getting down. Y'all, I don't know if y'all know, but this is a very, very depressing time for college students, especially for freshmen, because they can't get out and do the social thing that they come to college to do. Now, they want to be social, they want to be students, and they also want to be athletes, but that one component has been cut out. So now I'm having to train and maintain and teach their mental, and make sure their mental is strong, because right now, with the pandemic being away, it's 21 days. It takes 21 days to develop bad habits. And Absolutely. We went through several cycles of 21 days during the pandemic. And so now I have a bunch of players that have a bunch of bad habits that I am trying to break at this moment. And a lot of them is self-confidence. A lot of them is, self-esteem, just putting back in them who they are and what they bring to the table has been a major roadblock for us. But, I talked to our athletic director about it because it was really serious. And then they had our ring ceremony for us, and that opened up. That brought them back to, okay, all right, now, okay, we see it. Okay, this is making us back focused, Mm-hmm. So from the ring ceremony, man, our practices went through the roof. Our intensity increased tremendously. So that was the roadblock we faced. And then those are some things that we did to kind of make those adjustments, just getting the players to believe in themselves and to understand where we're trying to continue to take the program to, was a major adjustment.
Yeah, emotional intelligence, emotional leadership, definitely. Thank you, Coach Reed.
With that, I want, if you would allow us to take us off the court a little bit and outside of the psychological component of working with players, past that history that you illustrated to us in terms of what that looks like. Talk about some of the management techniques in regards to the scheduling platform. I know oftentimes schedules are made early during the year, January timeframe before that. And so a lot of ways the schedules were being made prior to COVID-19. But I was wondering, were there any changing to that in terms of moving forward with the scheduling parameters. Were you able to put that together? And if you would, take us behind the curtain a little bit in terms of the coaching on the management side of scheduling. How did that look?
Well, on the side of scheduling for us, in the preseason, we want to play teams that obviously we can bring in some revenue. We want to play those type of teams, and we also want to play teams that we can beat in preseason. Play programs that would be very good wins for our program. And so that's what we look forward to as we are entering into our preseason. This year, we had a schedule that was supposed to have started November 10th. And so we had contracts signed and, we were geared and ready to play those games. Then NCAA came in and said, we're going to push you guys back to November 25th. So when they pushed us back to November 25th, we lost 4 games. And so we were trying to reschedule those schools to play us, and some we were able to reschedule. Then some came back a week later and dropped us again. So we've been dropped about 5 or 6 times already because of the pandemic. It's been very trying. We've had contracts with some people. The contracts are null and void because of the pandemic, and national disasters are written into contracts. And they're considering the pandemic a national disaster. And so we're going to lose a lot of money this season. But nevertheless, we're still going to play. Mississippi State just called last night. They were dropped by UConn. And so they called and asked us if we can play this Sunday. So it's crazy. So now I got to get the team turned around and in gear, ready to play a Sunday's game. So this scheduling for this year has been very, very, very tough.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate you, again, taking us into the coach's office in a lot of ways, as we said, behind the sheets, and getting us that type of insert. Because access, I guess I should say, because those are questions that fans want to know, those that follow the show. And so to give us that insight, we really appreciate it, because we know you didn't have to do that. Coach, if you would hold on, we'd like to take a commercial break, but we would like to get in a little more questions, because this is a very intriguing interview. And you have a lot of good information that you can share. And I'd like to follow up, let Charles and Mike get another question in there. So we'd like to go to a commercial break. If you'd hold on, we'll be right back with you. This is Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, with our interview with Coach Tomekia Reed of Jackson State University's women's basketball program. And let me say, championship program.
Follow the Black College Sports Network on social media at MyBCSN1, the number 1, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at MyBCSN1.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We're interviewing Jackson State University's women's basketball coach, Tomekia Reed, champion of the SWAC this past year. And it sounds like they have something in store for the SWAC this year as well, as they would have cut down the nets maybe twice last year as they were looking at that tournament championship. That was taken away from them, but we'll see what can get done this year. So, again, kudos to you, Coach. With that, let's jump right back into it, as you were giving us some great information about the Jackson State University program, specific women's basketball. Charles, if you would follow up with a question at this time.
Sure thing. Coach Reed, I wanted to talk a little bit about your recruiting prowess. And I always put the caveat out there, you were doing this pre-prime time, so yeah, you were really getting it done in terms of hitting the pavement and going out and getting the quality caliber athletes to come to Jackson State. A number of Dandy Dozens in the state, and then you take it one step further. You go national, and you bring in a young lady who is in the top 100 in the nation. But just talk about you and your staff and what it is that you are bringing to the road, if you will, in terms of bringing these athletes back to Jackson State.
It's just it's really a blessing. I'll tell you that. My 4-year plan that I put in place when I took the job at Jackson State, during my interview I shared with the search committee, I wanted our program to have national attention. And I wanted that in terms of our players receiving national honors, and being able to recruit in top national players, and us going out and winning big games against Power 5 institutions. And so to do that, we have to bring in those caliber athletes. And I'm 100% sure that the players that we have coming in are going to be very competitive. They are the team that we need to continue to push Jackson State over the top. And I'm really excited about that group that we're bringing in for next season. My staff work diligently. They work extremely hard. They do not take no, and I love it. That's one thing I instilled in them. That was our recruiting motto my very first year at Jackson State. No is not an answer. And so they do a very good job in pushing forward. And one thing I like about my staff, you guys, a lot of coaches in the HBCU struggle with this because, again, I used to be an assistant 12 years ago in HBCU. They struggle with confidence. When you have to go against a Power 5 institution recruiting a player, a lot of times HBCUs back down because you have the Power 5 institutions saying, well, they don't have these type of resources, well, they can't do this for you, well, this is not going to happen for you there, And so we're able to really compete with that. When we brought Amisha Williams in from Mississippi State, she opened a huge door for us to be able to get those top athletes. Not only was she a transfer from Mississippi State, she was a great player. Before she left high school, she was the number 1 player in the state. She was top 10 in the country in her position, and she was a top 100 player who had all Power 5 offers. And so this is the type of player that we got into our program who will have a shot to play in the WNBA, who just, won the award for the Lisa Leslie top center in the country. I mean, that's phenomenal. She broke history with that in itself. Right. And so that is opening up that door for us to say, hey, you can come here and go to the WNBA. Now that we're getting our facilities upgraded, now we're able to say we have the facilities as well. But, and I love my staff because they're not easily intimidated. They're going to go over and beyond. We may not have what these other schools have they can offer you, but we have what we have. And we're going to love you with everything that we have to make sure you're the best that you can be. So my staff, I take my hat off to them. I applaud them. I celebrate them, and I'm thankful for them. But yes, they worked extremely hard to bring this class in.
No doubt.
Well, Coach, I understand that you don't recruit the old men's off the sideline to play pickup basketball, but I tell you, I'm fired up and excited. I'd sign my name in a minute in regards to come play under your coach and your tutelage. With that said, let Mike follow up with a question.
Yeah, Coach Reed, I had the question about recruiting, but I also have a question more so about your philosophy, and it's twofold. Your philosophy. Last year, you were second in the SWAC in scoring, and I think the second or third in defense. With the transition of players, the bringing in of new players, what is your overall philosophy? Is it, is it man defense? Is it hit the boards? Take us through that. And then my second part of your question is if Dr. Cavil will allow me, he sometimes cuts my mic off. So my second part is we're bringing 2 new schools into the SWAC. We're bringing a Bethune-Cookman who was tops of the MEAC last year in women's basketball. What are your thoughts on bringing 2 new schools? How do you feel about the competition level from that perspective as well? So sorry to hit you with a twofold question.
Oh, it's okay.
That's why I cut off his mic. No, go ahead, coach. You can handle it. You're a championship coach. Show them what you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My philosophy with the team, number one is toughness. You have to be tough. I'm a coach who has been through a lot in my life, and my situation, anything around me, it doesn't determine who I am and what I do. And so through it all, you have to be competitive. You have to be extremely tough. And my personality, it has to be filtered into my players. And the players I recruit into my system have to fit my personality. As tough and as energetic and as high intense as I am on the floor, they have to bring that same energy. So first and foremost, toughness is the most important thing, because if you're tough, you can play defense. If you're tough, you can score the ball. You can do all those things. And if you're tough, you can make quick adjustments. And so I would just say that, our players are extremely tough. And, we get after it. We mix up our defenses. We do man, we do zone. We do what we have to do in terms of in order to win the game. We make adjustments. I'm not one of those coaches that's going to keep doing the same old thing and keep getting beat. I'm going to make adjustments and do the necessary things to make sure.
That's good, coach, because we be on this show and we would talk about you. We talk about coach. I'm just kidding. We don't do that. We analyze, we get updates, and we bring you on to say what you say. But with that being said, I would talk about, I thought it was great that Mike jumped in there in regards to the expansion of the league. But in terms of the current coaches that are in the league, one of the things we looked at last week when we were breaking down the SWAC women's side of the basketball, over 2 weeks ago, I should say, one thing stood at me when I started looking at the top 10 preseason, and of those top 10, of the top 8, 7 of those coaches had won championships in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, you add on to it that you have Bethune-Cookman that's winning the championship. And then you bring in FAMU to brought in a new coach that's going to be seeking that and has some history of doing some good things on women's basketball. Talk about how winning in this league and your ability to recruit these top level players matched up with just how far deep and the depth is, not just with talented players, but the talented coaches in this league that seems to be getting just deeper. Talk about that, if you would.
Well, in the conference, we have some very, very good coaches. Sandy Pugh, who's very good. Cynthia Cooper, who's, again, another tough coach, just extremely tough. Coach Richards at Alabama A&M. Frida at Alabama State is extreme tough, tough coach. We have a lot of really, really good coaches in the league, and you want to see the conference continue to grow in competitiveness, because as good as we can become as a conference, now we're bringing national attention to our league. And so you want to have a good conference. You don't want anybody that you're blowing out by 50 and 60 every night. There's no representation. There's no representation, and our conference would be looked at as a joke. And so you want a good conference who can go out and compete against these Power Fives. You want to gain, not only do I want to gain respect for Jackson State women's basketball, but I want our conference to have respect. So when we come out and you see SWAC, you say, oh man, SWAC is just as tough as Southland, or just as tough as Conference USA. You want to be on that board. And I think we have some very good coaches to say that. With the 2 additional coaches we just added on, one is coming from a mid-high majors institution. She's been around the block, and so she's going to bring a lot of excitement to the league. And Bethune-Cookman, that coach is a winning coach, and she's going to bring it to the league as well. But for me, I think it's great. I commend it. But at the end of the day, it's about Jackson State. And we gotta make sure we do what we're supposed to do. And we gotta make sure we're competitive. We gotta make sure we're competing, and we gotta make sure we continue to bring in these top players, because if you can conquer your league, we want to go out and conquer these Power Fives as well.
Coach, I see you always recruit.
I see you.
You way to bring Jackson State, and I was gonna let you do that as we close up. We're going to give you that time to really shine on Jackson State University. Talk about your program coaches or the fans out there, alumni. What would you like to say to close out? We'll give you the last minute to talk about I love the Tigers of Jackson State University.
You know, I'm so excited about where we're going as a university in a whole, in its entirety. Our athletic director is doing an amazing job. Excuse me, guys. Our athletic director is doing an amazing job with what he's bringing to the university. Our new president, Thomas Hudson, is doing a very good job, and I am fully confident in those two and where they're leading our programs. You know, the excitement with Dion being here, the excitement with, you know, bringing in a national ranked player, and right after that, you know, bringing in Misha Williams being a top 20 post player in the country against the top players. You know, it's really a blessing. I thank God for the light he's showing on our program. And I'm thankful for our alumni. You know, our alumni came out and supported us last year. They were in the stands early. They didn't come at halftime to get a seat for the men's game. They were there before the game started to support women's basketball. And my team saw them, and my team felt good, and they went out and played hard for our fans and our alumni. So I want to encourage everybody to continue to support us, to continue to come. You know, it's a tough time right now with the pandemic. We don't know how things are going to play out. We may be on the floor one night with two of our best players out, but we need everybody in the stands cheering just as hard, you know, for our program and giving these girls a pat on the back, because it's going to be a tough time, and we got to be expecting the unexpected. So I'm thankful, and I'll continue to look forward to another successful year.
No doubt about it. With that, hey, Coach, I'm gonna tell you, I'm a fan until you.
I got it. She just made me.
You know,
she just made me.
You do that Texas two-step. But no, I'm a fan. Seriously, great work. Continue the great work. And tell Ashley Robinson, you know, I still have my checkbook. He came over there from Prairie View. I dropped my wallet on the floor. Yeah. And he picked it up. He's such a kind gentleman. Returned it back to him. I said, "Oh, Coach, I mean, AD, you know, VP of Cleveland Athletics. You know, I was just trying to see, you know, what you said you wanted to move. I thought I'd make you think twice about it. So let him know the wallet is safely in my pocket, but we can talk. We can talk.
Okay.
Let him know.
All right.
Yeah. No, seriously, Coach, great work you're doing. We're proud of you. We're excited about you. The excitement you're doing for Jackson State University and the SWAC. And just excited about seeing a continuation of the legacy of the conference and the great history that we have at Jackson State University and SWAC. Continue the great work. We'll have you back on the show. You do great you keep doing the great things that you're doing, and we'll make sure, because Professor Bishop up there, as you said, Dr. Bishop, Charles Bishop, he gonna make sure you have your time on there. So with that,
you better believe it.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it. I like those cups, Mike.
Yeah, you forced me to bring these cups back out. Charles gave them to me.
The story behind that quickly, coaches, he gave those, Charles gave those as a gift. Talking about we excited. We ain't gonna talk about what we do off the show. Like, hey, you know, you might need some, you know, it's gonna be this type of season. And we're like, what is this?
All right. I mess with Charles. They still in the wrapper, but man, after hearing our last couple of interviews, I'm gonna have to pull them out.
There you go.
All right, with that, Coach, we'll see you and then let you have your time back. We really appreciate you. Have a happy Thanksgiving with your team and your family as much as possible. Continue to do the great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We will have a quick break here, and then we'll bring back the last 15 minutes of this part of the show as we just interviewed Jackson State University women's basketball coach Tomekia Reed, giving you some insight of COVID-19 pandemic, preparing you for the upcoming basketball season. With that, let's go to a quick break, and we'll be right back with you with Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We just closed out on a great interview, I would like to think, with Jackson State University's head women's basketball coach, Tomekia Reed. Just talking a little bit about the program, her history, as well as her expectations, not just in terms of what she was able to do last year, but what she's planning to do this year and into the future. Great interview. Thanks for bringing that to us, Charles. With that, let's jump back into some more talk and news in regards to what's going around the HBCU sports world. Let me know your thoughts on the information that's out there regarding AT&T and Winston-Salem State. The new football rivalry is back on in regards to 2024. This was a game that was last played when Winston-Salem State was a provisional member of the MEAC, and former president stepped out and current president came in and said, no, they're transitioning, going back to Division II and rejoining the CIAA. And the game hadn't been played for a while. It's a nice historic rivalry that goes back to 1944. Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of rekindling this rivalry as well? And then we'll go to Mike in terms of your thoughts. What are your thoughts, Charles?
Well, I mean, personally, I love it. Anytime you're able to rekindle a rivalry and to be able to get that that game, that familiarity back going again, where, you know, the alumni fan bases get to jaw with each other a little bit. It should be fun. Winston-Salem State, North Carolina A&T, renewing old rivalry. So I'm looking forward to it.
No doubt about it. Before we jump to you and ask your thoughts on that, Mike, Ronaldo Christmas is jumping in here. Israel Carey, as we got him in here. Helen Cook Bales, Kevin Crawford continues to check us out in here. Tom Jackson, Dwight Moore is in the house checking it out, doing a lot of information here. Just want to make sure we get some of the shout outs for the folks that's checking it out, doing some of the chatting out there. Trudy Jackson is in the house, getting it done in so many ways. Dixon is in here as well, just giving us some of that shout out. Anna Aise Fred Whitted is bringing it on here. He says, HBCU Heritage Center, great show. Thank you for what we do. No doubt about it in terms of those that joined us. Mike, what are your thoughts in regards to AT&T, Winston-Salem State, planning to get it back going again in regards to rekindling the football rivalry in 2024?
Yeah, excited, but what took so long? Really, it's a natural rivalry. When it started in 1947 and it stopped in 2010, and we just now picking it up, but it won't pick up till what, 2024? What took so long? This is, to me, a natural rivalry that makes sense. I'm glad that it's picking back up. It's a part of the 100-year celebration of North Carolina A&T football. But I'm like, what really took so long? What's the holdup? So there's a lot of, despite that the two will come from different conferences, I think this is good for HBCU football, in my opinion. So it's a natural rivalry that you can continue to build upon in years to come. So lots of excitement for a number of reasons. I echo what CB said, and plus.
In terms of that, let's stick in there with Winston-Salem State in terms of the CIAA. They announced their 2021 men's and women's basketball schedule from the CIAA, I should say. They had that modified schedule featuring just 16 conference games, including 10 divisional and 6 crossover divisional contests that began January 9th and go to February 20th. So they get outside of some of that winter months, not playing those non-conference games. But I really like what they're able to do here. And the fact that they're going to try to allow the college athletes to have a season. Going with you, Mike, what are your thoughts about the CIAA announcing men's and women's basketball schedule, and particularly the format?
Yeah, I like the creative scheduling format. I like the approach they took. It's realistic, and it leaves, if you look at it, it leaves room for future adjustment, if you will, for whatever may happen with COVID-19. But I like the creative approach that they took with the scheduling. So I think it still offers the fans an opportunity to check out some CIAA basketball, with the understanding that if you look at it and who they have to play and how many number of games, there's some flexibility, some moderate degree of flexibility built into the schedule. So.
Oh, great point. Charles, what are your thoughts about the scheduling, and to some degree what Mike said about the flexibility? What are your thoughts about this scheduling?
Well, I think that's the key word, the flexibility. And we just heard Tomekia Reed talk about having to stay flexible with regards to their schedule. They weren't even on Mississippi State's schedule on Sunday, and now they're playing Mississippi State this upcoming Sunday. So allowing for that flexibility is really going to help moving forward, because this is going to be a very challenging deal to try to play basketball during these winter months. I expect roadblocks, but to see the creativity in terms of how schools try to maneuver around it will be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And talking about that flexibility, we get into some of this with the next couple of stories, and we'll put them all together as one and get your thoughts in either all of them or one of them in terms of particularly that may have stuck out to you. CIAA basketball programs, as you said, they have the flexibility all the way up to the fact that they can opt out. And you've seen, obviously, with Florida A&M's women's basketball opting out of the 2021 season. This is on the heels of what the decision they made with basketball, but that was fall sports. Now you're talking about winter sports going into the spring with FAMU's women's basketball, and the fact that the men are still going to try to move forward. I thought that was interesting to some degree. You talk about the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. They will not compete in the spring of 2021 athletic program in terms of what that looks like. And on the heels, you have North Carolina Central's basketball team, as we alluded to with our interview with Jackson State women's basketball program early on. Now you have the North Carolina Central University pausing practice after team reports a positive COVID-19 test. And this is on the heels of them trying to find a way to celebrate the team's championship as they have their annual coaches dinner. They did it outside and things of that nature. And obviously we're not doing the tracing, so you don't know if it was done at that event. But just putting all that together, what are your thoughts either on either one of these types of cases, or just in general, the havoc, if you allow me to use that, in terms of what COVID-19 is doing with sports at all levels, particularly as we talk about at college sports, even more so in what we're looking at HBCU sports across the landscape. Do you see this as an indication of what is to come, or in regards to people trying to muscle through the season in some type of format? Let's jump with you to start us off with this framework, Mike. What are your thoughts on any or all of that? Wrapping it up, if you would.
Yeah, I see it as a combination of, there are some people that are trying to push it, but kind of like other industries. Yeah, if you look at, airline industries, if you look at corporate America in a whole, different companies in different regions of the United States may come up with a flexible plan to try to push their way through it. There may be others that have been impacted already just because of the hot zones and the regions that they don't have the choice. That's why you have a FAMU opting out. So I think that this is kind of a microcosm of what you're seeing in other industries, where you may have a university saying, look, we already have a few confirmed cases. We know that the area where our university is, it's a hot zone. We're going to make the conservative decision at the most to protect our players. And you have others saying, well, we're going to wait and see, put a flexible plan in place and see if we can kind of push our way through it, knowing that we may have players come, test positive. We may have to cancel a game. It just depends on the region. So I think it's a combination of both. And it's just, you're seeing it manifested in different sports programs. And it's interesting in the different approaches, one canceling the whole season and one saying we're going to put a modified schedule together. So I think so that, that's just kind of my take. Each university is going to be a case-by-case study and analysis of what risk measures do you have? What hot zones are you are? What's the region look like? What's the landscape look like? Can we do this? And some are saying, no, we can't. The risk is not worth it. And some are saying, we're going to put something together and try to chart our way through it. So I just think you're seeing a lot more.
You couldn't have said it better. And we've said kind of from the start that this is going to be a state to state sort of look-see. What might work here in Texas might not work in Florida. What might work in North Carolina might not work in Virginia. So it's very, like you said, going to be a case-by-case analysis of what to do and where to go. At this point, I look and see when schools opt out, it's not as though I'm like, wow, they opted out, they can do this over here. Well, it's going to change from state to state, and hopefully we'll get some sort of, I think, national sort of codified response now to where we can kind of get under one banner. I think it was way too fragmented up until November 3rd, honestly. But we'll see what happens going from here.
Agree. Great point.
That's a nice little punch you put in there with the way you framed that.
Yeah.
Very well done, I must add, in terms of what's going on. James Knox has jumped in here, and Chuck Hunt is continuing to give great information as they're chatting back and forth in the feed, if you would. John Jenkins, I believe, after that interview. Kay Johnson says, great interview, Coach Reed. Continued the tradition of excellence. Hashtag #DILove. Boy, I love these folks in here, particularly from Jackson State University, showing great love, getting it all in. Kevin Crawford said, I'm rooting for you until Lady Rattlers join the swag. Great job, brother Kevin Crawford. Yes. I like it. Helen Cook Bale says, go JSU North Mississippi is watching. Oh, boy, I tell you, I like that. Israel Carey says, love you, Coach Reed. Keep it going. Great components there. A lot of great comments coming in. Guess who jumped in here on us? Carlos Brown says, amen, Bishop. Amen, Bishop. Carlos Brown, for you all that don't know, I don't know how you're going to miss that. Every Saturday, you can tune in to Carlos Brown's show from 10 to 12, giving you great information, insight in terms of the Southern program, pretty much over that show. And then he takes a deeper dive and breaks it open as he gets into SWAC and even takes it beyond that in terms of HBCU. And then, he's from the boot, so he'll sneak in some information on the professional teams down as he does it, as he's well-rounded. A lot of great information, and folks don't know. Carlos has been doing it a long time down there. So much love to Carlos Brown with the Carlos Brown Show. Again, every Saturday from 10 to 12 as he continues to get and give you great information. Check him out. Ken Clark is in the house, giving so much love there as we get it done. We're going to take our last break here as we get into it. But before we do that, I will share this information. And on the backside, you can give me your thoughts on this if you would. Howard Volleyball flips another, as I to call him, historically white college university commit. Colin Temple committed to Hawaii in June, but announced she would be headed to Washington, D.C. instead. Statement via Twitter. So you can put a pin on this and we'll talk about it. After a lot of thought and consideration, I've decided to decommit from the University of Hawaii. I want to extend a huge thank you to the coaching staff there. I wish you all the best in the future. Quote, I also want to announce that I'm now committed to Howard University, as they may say around there, the Mecca. Go Bison, boy, I tell you, that is intriguing. 6'2" middle blocker from Baton Rouge had Howard, as well as FAMU in the final choices. Boy, that return to the HBCU continues to churn. I love it. But as we do that, we're going to close out at the top of this hour, if you would, as we pay homage to our radio partner, KCOH 1230 AM. We're going to close out on the radio side and closing out with KCH feed from inside KCOH 1230 AM studios with Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper and the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Hang on. This is Dr. Cavill's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come right back with us as we close out on the final period of the show. From inside.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball, who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, as we call him, Professor Washington and Professor Bishop, as we're in the lab cooking it up. Yeah, we're not ready to take our Thanksgiving break quite yet from the classroom because we're still in the lab. We're going to mix it up a little more for you all as we put a pin on it. We just talked about Howard University flipping another historically white college former commit, Colin Temple, if you would, in terms of going from Hawaii University to Howard University. With that, Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of this continuing churning, as I like to talk about, not the conference churning in this way, but players churning their commits as they continue to make a difference? What are your thoughts on this particular individual and just the overall framing that you're seeing, particularly, if we would, on the women's side?
Definitely. And I think we've talked about it in terms of this social climate that we're in. You're starting to see African-American athletes want to be in a quote unquote safe space. And that's something that we've talked about a little bit in terms of, and I keep referencing this renaissance of athletes coming back to HBCUs. In talking to Coach Reed, her national commit, Sequoia Allman, she talked about wanting to start something anew at an HBCU. Is something that she's already obviously already thought about, but to get an opportunity to actually do it, that's huge. And I think you're starting to see it, not just on the men's side with transfers coming back to HBCUs, but you're starting to see, and I think this is the real important part, is the high school students are really, you're going to see, I think over the next 2 or 3 years, really turn their eyes back towards HBCUs. And I think that's where the real renaissance will really take hold.
Thank you for breaking it down. That's a great point, the seeing what this will mean at the high school level as you continue to see that churn as well. We've seen for a little while what we've seen transfers come in, which is big, but now you see it going down to the high school ranks. So it's going to be fascinating to see what that looks like. As we're going to give you a bonus 15 minutes or so, let's jump in here in a little bit to talk about Bank of America gives 6 HBCUs $1 million for the Job Initiative program, particularly Morgan State University, in part of Bank of America's recent $1 billion 4-year commitment to advance racial equality and economic opportunity. The company announced today further details about $25 million commitment to enhance upskilling and reskilling for Black and Hispanic Latino students, particularly those serving HCIs, historic Hispanic serving institutions, and HBCUs, as you know. Just put a pin on this a little bit. What are your thoughts on that? The partner schools in this are Delaware State University, Florida A&M University, Morgan State University, as I said, North Carolina A&T State University, Prairie View A&M University, and Tennessee State were the 6 schools that were part of this initial initiative over this 4-year period. Let me jump back to you, Mike, in terms of what are your thoughts in terms of continuing to see these dollars go to HBCUs on various different levels, from corporations and philanthropy and all those kind of things. What are your thoughts in terms of the importance on this one, and how long do you think you see this is going to last? We see these commitments, which are good, not necessarily just one time, but even if they are one time, they're over a period of time in terms of 4, 5, 6 years. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first, I'd like to commend finally one of these. And if you look at these schools, there is one school that's west of the Mississippi, and that is the Prairie View A&M University. You have Tennessee State, North Carolina A&T, Morgan State, Florida A&M, and thank God we got one HBCU in there that is west of the Mississippi. But in terms of its overall significance, I think you see an ongoing trend. And what I mean by this is, I don't think this, usually you could say this is a one-time deal, but you've seen enough of this in the last, I'd say 6 months, with kind of the cultural shift in America to make you, to at least give you hope that this is going to be a continuing development and ongoing. I think it has to do with some of the cultural push that you see in America. I think it also has to do with what's happening in the White House, where you see the shift and change, the recognition of diversity. You also see it in corporate America. a shift in diversity where, you really have institutions asking, are we doing enough? You look at some of the pro athletes and what they're doing, and this is just to parallel the effort. So I don't think it's a one-time deal. I don't know how long it will continue, but I think you see something building. I think you see a snowball effect. That snowball is starting to get a little bigger. How big it gets, I don't know. I can pray it gets big. But I think you see a continuing and ongoing effort to support HBCUs, which is good, and I hope it continues.
Just to give you that, I literally I'm in Instagram with Alphas, essentially a Prairie View A&M University alumni, and those Alphas that actually joined graduate chapters, and just posted that a corporate giant Dow partners with PVAMU for a $5 million plan to diversify STEM fields. So your point is well taken. It seems like what's going on there. I'm gonna jump in here and ask Charles a little twist in terms of that. Obviously, when you start seeing the breakdown, all of these are Division I HBCUs. You break it down as we like to categorize different things. You have Tennessee State outside of the traditional MEAC SWAC conferences, as you would know, in terms of OVC, in terms of their conference affiliation. North Carolina A&T obviously is going outside of that tent, currently a MEAC member, but they'll start in the Big South. So you have that alignment. You have Morgan State and Delaware State, current members of the MEAC, maintaining their MEAC membership, as you have FAMU now moving over to the SWAC. And so when you look at that dynamic from that perspective, what are your thoughts in terms of mix of institutions? Anything that you see from that, or what are your thoughts in, again, just the initiative in itself in terms of the pathway for future employment from Bank of America and what that may look like as we talk about these institutions looking at the diversity component? What are your thoughts on that, Charles?
I think Mike has touched on this before in terms of when you get these corporate partnerships, sometimes it's the familiarity of who they're familiar with. So when I was taking a look at the schools and saw Bank of America, knowing that they're huge within the Charlotte area, and kind of looking at the HBCUs that were relatively regional beyond Prairie View on that. So, but I think that there's a familiarity component in terms of what partner institutions were selected. So, but I applaud them. I think that the statement they made in terms of enhancing existing programs to meet specific skill gaps, that's a huge component there in terms of enhancing skill gaps to get to where all of us really need to be with regards to our HBCUs.
Great point. As you talk about what's going on at that level in the mix that is unique that's going on there. It's fascinating me when you look at this also in the component that, as Mike teased out in a lot of ways, you start talking about the west of the Mississippi, but you also seeing what I'm calling President Ruth the Truth, as a lot of people say around there. Yeah. President Ruth Simmons, to be more accurate in regards to that, in terms of what she is able to do, adding that dynamic of her past relationships, is certainly doing a lot of great things for Prairie View University. Had a great interview that I saw with HBCU Digest, where she was talking about one thing that resonated with me. And obviously she's in a position to be able to feel this way and talk about it a little more than maybe some, is the fact that she was not just going to accept any type of gift. And I'm sure that the diversity initiatives have played onto that, and her relationship with a lot of folks is significant. But she talked about being personal with this in a lot of ways, if you allow me to use that framework, and introspective of challenging those companies, saying, hey, if you're going to give to us, let's be serious. Let's don't do anything from some little benefact, if you would, in terms of that, but really talking about, if you're going to do something that is meaningful, let's make a significant offer. And she challenged the institutions out there about not just giving us a second thought, but being significant in terms of the amount that you're going to give us. So I thought that was an interesting framework, just to close out on what you were saying there. Again, one of the last part of the things that I want to get out there, a couple of things we'll share out as we start to touch on the other thing to give everybody a true break in terms of enjoying the holiday. We're going to let you off just a little bit early tonight. I'll let you start to relax yourself a little bit, because I see how you're starting to see some hunger pains there, man. Thanksgiving is not until Thursday, gentlemen. So relax yourself a little bit. I know you're ready and fired up, but there's no Turkey Day this year. So we have no Bayou Classic. We just got past that big weekend. Those rivalry games, including Jackson State, Alcorn State. So I don't know, good or bad thing for Charles, late with what the Braves were able to do some way, but y'all snuck in some punches and you got your licks in a little bit. Now, new kids on the block, Florida A&M, Bethune-Cookman, which will actually become a SWAC contest starting next year. They would have just had their rivalries, and we're going to tease those rattlers out there, because would they have been able to get over the hump finally this year? But for those Bethune-Cookman Wildcat fans, they got another a year now that they both had canceled the football season to rub it in on the Rattlers that they didn't get the payback, as they would say, the big payback this year. But that brings me to the Black College Football Hall of Fame class of 2021 was announced this past week. Black College Football Hall of Fame announced its 12th class. Class of 21, and 6 inductees were selected from a list of 25 finalists who had been determined earlier by the selection committee. The Black College Football Hall of Fame class of 2021 includes Coy McComb. Did I say that right, Charles?
Coy Bacon.
It's actually Bacon, Jackson State University. Greg Coleman, Florida A&M University. Jimmy Giles of Alcorn State University. Winston Hill of Texas Southern University. Roynell Young of Alcorn State University, and Coach Willard Bailey, Virginia Union, Norfolk State, and St. Paul's College, as well as Virginia Lynchburg College. So you have quite a few SWAC tilt into this year at CIAA. Norfolk State, when he was over there, was CIAA, but now in the MEAC. What are your thoughts on this 6-member class being inducted by Black College Football? Statement made from the co-founder, 2011 inductee Doug Williams said, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, congratulations to the class of 2021, said, it is a significant achievement to be considered one of the best to ever play or coach football at a historically Black college and university. What are your thoughts in terms of your thoughts, Charles, in terms of this 6-member class?
Tremendous class. Coy Bacon is part of a group of Jackson State players in the 60s, early to late 60s, where they had over 25 some odd NFL draft picks. And this is a guy who, is credited with 130 sacks prior to the sack being officially recognized as a stat. So, and being part of that fearsome foursome group with the Rams. So kudos to Coy Bacon, but Greg Coleman, you remember him as a punter who boomed them with Minnesota. Jimmy Giles being Doug Williams' favorite target in Tampa Bay. Winston Hill, of course, Texas Southern. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Roynell Young, I've heard all the stories about Roynell Young. He is a tremendous defensive back. He was part of the group that starts that DBU lineage. That's at Alcorn, leading to the Soul Patrol secondary and all those guys. And Coach Willard Bailey, in terms of what he was able to get done over there at Norfolk State and Virginia Union. So great class. This is going to be a great class going in.
Before I jump to you, Mike, and get your thoughts, this class of 21 will be honored at the 2021 Black College Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony and Juneteenth celebration. Nice tie-in they were able to do this, which will be presented by the Atlanta Falcons on June 19, 2021. The induction ceremony takes place at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. I have a helmet up here that I got signed from the previous classes. I was able to be a part of that in February. That's usually when they would do the ceremonies, but obviously with COVID-19, they pushed that back, and I like that they were able to tie it into another historical date of Juneteenth. And so I thought that was fascinating in regards to if you have to make a shift, to be able to make a shift with that allotted time frame where you think a vaccine or some mitigations will be in place potentially to allow that to take off in the summer, but you tie it in with the Juneteenth, a historic moment for a lot of African Americans, Black throughout the country. So I thought that made a lot of sense. So just wanted to get your thoughts in terms of the class or the information in regards to them moving the date and the date that they moved it to. Mike.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I think it definitely has some Mississippi flavor to it. I think 3 of 6 have played for. So there's some catfish working, and there's some blues going on in there. But so
notice I didn't want to say it. Thank you, Mike.
not a problem. I'll go ahead and acknowledge the elephant in the room. But tremendous class. I think, I wonder, that whoever made this decision, the board had a tough decision. I mean, you look at, if you look at the finalists like Donald Driver, Henry Lawrence, you had one of my favorites, but for personal reasons, Coach Billy Nix for Prairie View A&M was one of the coaching finalists. So tough choices, but a great class. And I like the move to the date. I can't even echo enough what Dr. Cavil said about, doing it on that date. And I thought that's ironic, but tough class, tough training. You got another class coming up,
Let me say now, Billy Nix should be in.
Yeah, that's, and I didn't want to maybe I get too personal, but Coach Billy Nix, and the legend he established, coaching the legendary Prairie View teams, I thought he should have been in. Other than that, I thought it was a tremendous class.
No problem. We'll have a show on that, and we might tease that out next week. I teased with Charles, who did some back research as he was compelling me and asking some questions. I said, all right, Charles, challenge accepted. Let me go do some research. And so just to tease this out a little bit, and we'll go in deeper detail, we did a framework. Obviously, a lot of people realize Coach Billy Nix, 6 National Black College Championships, 5 at Prairie View, 7 SWAC championships, not to mention what he was able to do at Morris Brown at the time of the SIAC, including that Black National Championship I talked about. But from 1958 to 1961, I want to tease this out a little bit. Think about some of the coaches that were in the SWAC from that 4-year period, the legends that he coached against. Let me start out in a lot of ways with Coach A.W. Mumford, 6 National Black College Champions, 13 SWAC championships, including 1 National Black College Championship during that period. And during that 4-year period, he was along with these great Hall of Fame coaches that also included Coach Eddie Robinson. Was part of Grambling State during that time. 9 National Black College Champions, 17 SWAC champions, and 1 Midwestern Conference Championship during that time. John Merritt, which a lot of us think a lot more with Tennessee State, but that 4-year period, he was at Jackson State during that period of time. He won 1 Black College National Championship at Jackson State and 6 other ones, 7 total, if you would, National Black College Championships that he won in regards to Tennessee State. 2 SWAC championships during that period of time, including championships at Jackson State when we talked about that, including among his 5, including 1 Midwest Conference Championship that he got done in a lot of ways. So it's just amazing when you talk about that. Also, Coach Alexander Durley, 1 Black College National Championship, 3 SWAC championships, and 1 Midwest Championship, was a coach during that period of time. And if that's not enough for you, also during that time outside of that is matchups that he had directly head-to-head with Coach Jake Gaither, 8 National Black College Champions, 20 SIAC champions, 3 SIAC Division A champions were his counterpart, where he had some coaching. He had no losing records against any of these perennial coaches. Let me say that again. He had no losing records, and we'll break it down next week to give you some indication, just to let you know how well-renowned Coach Billy Nix was with that overall record in terms of 192, 60, and 21, including 111, 27, and 5, compelling that part during his stints in 125, 36, and 8 overall. Just amazing. And just to put one additional nugget on it, he also had a winning record against none other than Wiley College's Coach Fred Pop Long, 3 National Black College champions and 9 SWAC champions as he was closing out his tenure at Wiley College. Those were guys that he had winning records against, just to tell you when you talk about what it looked like. Man, I was just like, when I broke that down and Charles told me to go do that research, I wanted to bring that. Last thing I close on, as I tease that, and we'll go in a little more detail to really break those numbers down in terms of the winning percentage against those coaches and his overall record, even more so in terms of SWAC. I think you'll get a tease out of that a little bit. Travis Scott launches the Cactus Jack Foundation to give HBCU scholarships and partners with Parsons, the new schools. Just to give you a little information on that, the fund is named after Scott's grandfather, Wayman Webster, who was the dean of Prairie View A&M University's graduate school. Scott, born Jacques Berman Webster II, had also selected current students at Morehouse College, Howard University, Texas Southern University, Grambling State University, and Prairie View A&M University, to give you some information there. Scott quoted as saying, Wayman Webster was the dean of Prairie View A&M Graduate School. My grandfather wanted me to take it all the way through college. I feel there is a power in education, so to be able to give someone the opportunity to fulfill that dream, as my papa thought, for me is amazing. And so kudos not only for these corporations putting a finger out there, but these celebrities, these professional athletes, taking it upon themselves with the financial wherewithal that they've had in their giving back and giving back to HBCUs, as we talked about Chris Paul, other ones out there, tremendous in regards to what's going on there. Any final thoughts with you, Mike, in terms of HBCU sports going into the holiday, things that you want to say in terms of this Thanksgiving break? Your thoughts, Mike?
No, thankful for a tremendous show. Coach Reed bought the passion. I mean, if you're not a Jackson State fan or not a SWAC fan, and you heard this interview tonight, tremendous energy, tremendous passion. You see why she is as successful as she is. I really like this effort of really bringing back resources to the HBCUs. But first and foremost, as we go into the holiday season, remember what's important. Wrap your hands around your family. Be safe. Please acknowledge the protocols. Try your I only do deep fried Cajun turkey or smoked turkey. So be safe as you cook it. You know I'm gonna cook mine. So, but there is a safe protocol way to do it. Don't burn yourself doing it. But enjoy yourself over the holidays and have a choice. You know, smaller get-togethers. Try outside, but definitely have a toast and be thankful for what we've done to this part and what we have. At least at to this point, who knows what the future brings, but let's take some time out and enjoy our loved ones. So that's my message.
Yeah.
Charles, your thoughts?
Well, it's definitely been a trying 2020, but to follow up on what Mike was saying, definitely wrap your arms around your family and stay safe. More than anything, stay safe. Continue to practice the protocols that are in place that allow for us to continue to be safe. A tremendous interview with Coach Tomekia Reed. She continues in this lineage of great women's basketball coaches in this conference. And I'm, managing the schedule. This is going to be tremendous. Dr. Cavil, like you mentioned, 7 of the 8 coaches in this conference, they already have a SWAC championship ring. So adding Tomekia Reed to the mix, this is going to be a tremendous women's basketball season. So hopefully we can continue to get these games in, muscle through in some way, but continue to stay safe. And thank you all for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We do it for you, and we do it with a lot of passion. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No doubt about it. I'll say that final thought and just say everybody be safe. As my colleagues here have said, co-hosts, let's continue to enjoy life. Be safe. Enjoy your family, even if it's over Zoom. Nothing's wrong with that. Find a way to call them up, say hello, and be thankful for what you're able to have. As many will be missing this Thanksgiving in regards to particularly some cases directly related to COVID as the life cycle continues. With that, thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure that you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. Want to give some shout outs to Cicely Parson, Roy Evans, in terms of what they're doing, Chris Gardner, a lot of the work they've done behind the scenes that allows us to really step up and focus on this part of the show. So I wanted to give them some kudos and hope that they are able to be safe and thankful for what they've helped to bring this show to where we are, to the great fans out there. inside the HBCU Sports Lab, the Lab fans that like no one else. We really appreciate you for the time that you spend to get your fix every Tuesday with us and throughout the week as you come and check it out as well. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, the College of HBCU Sports, I should say, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Hope you enjoyed our interview with Jackson State University's women's basketball coach, Tomekia Reed of HBCU, getting it done. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday right here at 6 o'clock. We look forward to next week as we will discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Dream big and move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles, what do we say?
Horse.
Mike,
Lecture.
dismiss.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about.